Hey, and goodness to you. I always say goodness because I don't know whether you're watching morning, afternoon, or evening. But isn't it great to have good in front of your salutation? And actually, that little opening comment is usually for the person who is watching it by video, because what I always do on Wednesdays is I come on, at least I try to come on 5 minutes earlier to let the audience get a chance to build. Let social media let everybody know, okay, Sporty's on, because I'm broadcasting on Facebook, LinkedIn, YouTube. And so so you may have set your dial to find out, when Sporty comes on live, let me know. But since I come on at 1 Eastern, your announcement will come at 1 Eastern. And you may, come on, your world doesn't center and day doesn't center around me. So you won't be sitting there waiting for 1 o'clock. No, you might be doing something else, and then it's, oh, Sporty's on late. So, oh my God, I forgot. Let me close this out. And then you're going to miss the opening couple of minutes. Not that that's going to be rocket science, but I like to let people get settled in. Do you know that when you're delivering a message, the more comfortable people are, the better they receive the message, which is why you have all of these theories about, how to engage, how to use humor, and what we learn in the Speakers Association is how important it is to take your audience on a trip. So all of that is part of getting you comfortable enough to receive the message. So I'm on early. I got less than 4 minutes for today's message. But if you get on early, within in person, please put in a thread who you are, where you're coming in from, because this is my interactive day. It's Wednesdays. So welcome, welcome, welcome. And I'd love to give you a shout out. And I also do that because depending on where you are, the other mediums that I mentioned won't see your comment. So if you give me a comment from, and not just the love, but actually put in the thread. So thank you. But if you're on LinkedIn and the people, and you put a comment in the box, the people on YouTube and Facebook won't see that, except for that I will click on it so that they will see it. Aha! All right, so please feed. Okay, and there we go. Rogercarole. Okay, good morning. Good morning, from a new Queen City resident. Yes, Rogercarole moved in from Chicago to Charlotte. And it's like when I moved there, I was calling from shy to shy. Okay, so welcome, welcome, welcome to Charlotte, to the CLT, as I call it, Rogercarole. And we got less than 3 minutes for today's message. And and by the way, Rogercarole getting on early. She's going to be, I don't worry about getting to that part, but she's going to be one of my co-authors today. Hey, you could get a chance to co-author one of my messages. Just in case you get on here now and you're not going to stay through the whole message, let me tell you now, spoiler alert, that I'm going to be, and here comes my other co-author, and still in Chicago, Daphne. And that is, I'm going to, both of these young ladies, hey, my sisters, we all young at heart, less than 2 minutes to go. But I'm rekindling the Gas Alphabet series. So I'm going to be featuring the letter I today. But if you want to be in next week's message, you want to be listed as one of my co-authors, I'm going to be featuring the letter A. So spoiler alert, you could be thinking about your word for the letter A now. I don't want you to put it in until it's time to leave, okay? But next week, we're going to be focusing on the letter A. And I got to tell you, quite frankly, I run out of things to talk about. Would you believe I run out of things to talk about? And it's because you want to give valuable information. I don't want to just, whatever I feel like coming off the top of my head, all right? But just want to make sure that I'm getting some of the concerns or topics that people may want to discuss, or just some words, because I call it collecting words. We got less than a minute for today's message. Let the words go through. Yay for the alphabet series. And see, yay even rhymes with A. Next week, the letter A will be our feature letter. But anyway, that's the spoiler alert, rather than wait till we get to there. And that's one of the things I do in my speaking, and you should do as a speaker. If you have a PowerPoint presentation and people ask you a question, or even if you don't have a PowerPoint, and somebody asks you a question that's not in the sequence of your information you're going to share, don't always say, we're going to get to that. Why not jump to that? And then when you get to it, you can gloss over it or refresh it. What it does, when people talk about, the tricks of engagement, one of the tricks is not a trick at all. It's actually being engaged. So, think about it. When someone asks you a question, say, look, I don't want to discuss that. We'll talk about that later. Doesn't that shut them down in our normal everyday conversation? So, it's not actually I'm not saying it's a negative when you do it if you're a presenter, but just how much more fluid would your presentation be if you answer the question while people are asking it? That's what I do. That way, when I get to that slide, especially if it's a presentation with a PowerPoint slide, when I get to that slide, I don't have to spend any time on it. And then it seems like the session is going faster just because I skipped that one slide. Now, the careful thing, and this is a speaking tip, which we have started today's message already, but the careful thing you want to do is not get so caught up, excuse me, that when you get to that slide, you say the whole slide all over. No, you can just, this was the slide that we talked about when so-and-so asked this question. And if there's another tidbit you want to add to it, do. But otherwise, skip past that slide and let them know you've already contributed, because it's so important to let your audience know that they have the answers. As a speaker, excuse me, as a speaker, as a messenger, you are delivering people information that they have. In most cases, people have the information already. They don't have another funnel to look through it to strengthen it. And that's what we do as presenters. We give the people a funnel, a different analogy. And again, this is what we're talking about today, because we're going to be talking about empathy. We're giving them another viewpoint of how to look at something that they already knew, already felt, or at least thought about. So that becomes your key, is be the funnel. And that's why it's about being the messenger. So if it's your first time, welcome to Glue Wednesday. And I call it Glue Wednesday because, so often people say, Wednesday, old school rules, I like to say. Wednesday, we used to say people work Monday to Friday or the weekend. We didn't give any props to the to flex time, even though it did exist. We just said Monday to Wednesday, Monday to Friday, or the weekend. And so Wednesday was called Hump Day because you got over the hump from Monday to Friday. Nothing wrong with that, but I like to always add a little more positive twist. And I decided to look at Wednesday as the middle day of a traditional 7-day week, which everyone experiences. And so it doesn't matter what days you work. It's just the middle of a 7-day week that keeps the week beginning and the week end together. So it's the glue. And that's why I call it GLUE. And that's my prayerful mode that I love to be in. And that's God's love undoes everything. Not that God's love tears things apart, but whatever has been torn apart, God's love will pull it back together. So welcome, Tina, coming in from LinkedIn. See, so this is what I'm saying. See, Tina's watching us on LinkedIn. Rogercarole and Daphne right now are on Facebook, so now they can see one another's comment. They can't comment to one another, but if you do, I will highlight it so that everybody can be cross-cultural, cross-social medial. I don't know if that's a word, but we just made it up and we're just using it. So let's go back to today. Today I'll be giving what I call a flashback to the GAS series. And the GAS is GLGAS, the Glue Alphabet series, where each message featured the next letter in the alphabet with words suggested by last week's viewers. This week's message will feature the letter I. And I click to my co-authors, and with the I words last year are familiar names this year. And that is Rogercarole, who gave me the word ignominious, Daphne Francis, which gave me the word instantaneous, Victor Morris, who gave me the word incredible, and Carolyn Simmons Bright, who gave me the word impossible. So yeah, I went and just totally took their last year's broadcast with the letter I, and I'm reusing it today. But again, as I say, spoiler alert, next week we're going to start the alphabet all over. So if you want to get a word into this message, it's going to start with the letter A. Don't put it in now, even if you're watching the video. Well, if you're watching the video, it doesn't matter. But because by then you'll be lower in the comments, because that's when I'll be asking for your words that the letter A. be put into the feed. Okay. Meanwhile, as you enjoy it, but here's continuing the point. As you enjoy the message, your senses will have been alerted to listen for those words that you see on your screen right now. You'll be listening for, because I'm not going to say, here's Rogercarole's words, here's Daphne's words. I'm just going to get those words into the message. And that will help you develop the practice that knowing it's similar to when you attend a conference, a meeting, or a class, and you're looking for certain information as confirmation of why you're attending. See, that's what we end up doing. We know why we go somewhere. We want to hear this. And so we're listening for that thing. So you'll be, your mind will subconsciously be tuned into words that begin with the letter I. And let me tell you, I learned from my good friend and spiritual brother, Pastor Wyman Wimbush. He told me that is actually something called the Bader-Mayhoff phenomenon. The Bader-Mayhoff phenomenon. It's the phenomenon where something you recently learned suddenly appears everywhere. See, so because we know that we're looking for the letter I, there's going to be a lot of words that begin with the letter I dispersed throughout the message. This is something you can do when you're writing your resume, when you're writing a term paper, when you're writing a thesis, or when you're writing a poem. You know, once you fixate yourself on a certain letter, when you're writing anyway, you know, once you fixate yourself on that letter, you're going to find more words that begin with that letter. There would have been another way of saying that. But this is also known as the frequently bias or illusion, the seeming appearance of a newly learned or paid attention to concept in unexpected places. So that's the Bader-Meinhof phenomenon. And that's what I just finished explaining to you. Now, my sponsor for today's message is 2 Kings 6 and 17, where they say, Elisha prayed, "O Lord, open his eyes so he may see." Then the Lord opened the servant's eyes, and he looked and saw the hills full of horses and chariots of fire all around Elisha. So today's message is empathy equals empty. Empathy equals empty. And you see, empty is the skeleton, not the root word of empathy. E-M-P, see, small a, T-H-Y. Small capital T and then with the small h and then a y. So I'm calling it the skeleton word, not the root word, because I'm making it up. So empathy equals empty. And here's why I say that. You have to empty yourself to make room. Where am I? You have to empty yourself to make room for others to be who they are and then worthy of compassion. Because isn't empathy about compassion, which we're going to see later on in the message? But that's what empathy is, making room. You have emptying yourself to make room for others to be who they are and let them be worthy of compassion. So let's look at the word compassion and look at its synonym, ignominious, which is deserving or causing public disgrace or shame. Deserving or causing public disgrace or shame. And I'll tell you, that one's Rogercarole's word because it's stuck right out. And I love how she always increases my vocabulary. But with that definition, it's the deserving or causing public disgrace or shame, especially of events or behavior, especially of events or behavior. So some synonyms are embarrassing, inglorious, shameful, dishonorable, disgraceful, discreditable, vile, nasty, embarrassing, mean, offensive, rotten. Those are synonyms. If and when we look back at January 6, 2021, at the attack on the Capitol, many of these words have a spot in our vocabulary. And I chose to read them all because we're expected to now call upon our empathy in order to move forward. I read them all because empathy is a difficult skill and it's a difficult undertaking. I read them all because we think we can't understand what they could have possibly been thinking, when in fact, I say that we can. You see, what we have to understand is that empathy is not forgiveness. Empathy is not forgiveness. Empathy is the ability to understand another person's thoughts and feelings in a situation from their point of view rather than our own. Emptying ourselves out to understand another person's position and thoughts and feelings from their point of view rather than our own. And Daphne, maybe this is where we need to get your word overstand in there. I'm still working on that. But here, look, I'm sure most of us think that's impossible and way more than they deserve. However, the truth is that the goal really must be understanding rather than forgiving or agreeing. And the reminder must be that we may not have walked in someone else's shoes, but we've sat in one another's row. I don't know what you're going through. I've never been in your situation. I've never walked in your shoes, but I sat in your row. I still sit there because we've all been through and are going through something. So please be sure to watch the YouTube video. Okay, the YouTube video that I will share in this thread. I'm going to post it here and there right now. To check out that YouTube video is from, where am I? I lost my place. It's from the Cleveland Clinic. And then you're going to notice how many people are in the same space experiencing a different motion, a different moment. So that's what you can do from watching that. Oops, that's the wrong. No, that's the right. No, that's the wrong one. So let me click in the other one. That's going to be the right one. This one. Okay, so that one that I clicked in there is another one that I'm going to share with you. But this is the one that I want you to check out. That I'm telling you that's going to talk about empathy and showing you how people are sharing the same space but having a different moment. And before I do that, I'll get a hello in there from Vic, my other co-author over there on Facebook. And so there's his hello to everybody. So we got all my three co-authors are in here. In terms of my regular. Carolyn may end up joining us, but these three gave me their I words last year, and they are with me every week, which is also why I chose them to use the I word to bring back our message. So thank you, Vic. But again, that's what we have to do. There's the Cleveland Clinic on empathy, and I don't know if you can go right to that link from the post, but either way, so what I'll do is I'll repost it at the end of the broadcast in the thread. All right. So let me get back to what I was saying, that the goal, empathy, okay, here we go. Empathy is the ability to understand another person's thoughts and feelings in a situation from their point of view rather than ours, and that our goal must be understanding rather than forgiving and forgetting. Okay, so, but let me first give you 3 types of empathy for us to understand, and using a lighter example. Here's a lighter example, okay? It's late on a Friday night, and you're relaxing after a hectic week, reading your favorite book when your phone rings. It's a close person, a close friend calling in a panic because she's just lost her job. And so you say, don't worry, you'll find another one soon. Besides, you knew your company was having financial problems. Didn't you expect this? Why are you so upset now? There's a stunned silence on the other end of the line, followed by a dropped call. Because what happened? You did not show any empathy. You did not show any empathy. And that's what can happen to us. See, you thought you were trying to comfort her. So what went wrong? Without first empathizing with her and listening to her concerns, you might have done more harm than good. So let's look at the 3 types of empathy. First, there's cognitive empathy. Simply knowing how the other person feels and what they might be thinking. This is sometimes called perspective taking. If you can imagine yourself in your friend's shoes, or like I like to say, in her row or his row, you know she is likely to be feeling sad as well as anxious because she relies on that income to pay her student loans. However, having only cognitive empathy keeps you at a distance from your friend. To truly connect with your friends, you need to share their feelings. And so this is where emotional empathy comes in. Emotional empathy is when you feel physically along with the other person as though their emotions were contagious. This type of empathy can also extend to physical sensations, which is why we cringe when someone else stubs their toe. Ever have that happen? In this case, excuse me, ooh. In this case, you can look inward to identify a situation where you were similarly anxious about the future. The situation itself may not be identical, as each individual is different. But what's important is that the emotions resulting from the situation are the same. So you've successfully understood what your friend is feeling, and you put yourself in a similar emotional space, right? But now what? Well, you have to use the insights gleaned from cognitive and emotional empathy to have compassionate empathy. And I mentioned compassion earlier. With this kind of empathy, we not only understand a person's predicament and feel with them, but we are spontaneously moved to help if needed. It is the balance between cognitive and emotional empathy that enables us to act without being overcome with feelings or jumping straight to a problem-solving position. And that was that second, the first link that I put in, and that's where I got that information from about the 3 different types of empathy. It's called Take Casper, but it's now called TakeAltis.com, but you can get to it directly from that link where, again, it explains the 3 types of empathy, with the last one being compassionate empathy. So now let's go back to January 6, 2021. The attackers were experiencing emotional empathy, physically connected to one another as though their emotions were contagious. And our larger and challenging goal is compassionate empathy. Not only understanding their predicament or state of mind and feel with them, but to spontaneously move to help if needed. That becomes our biggest challenge, which is the same grace that we want extended to everyone. And granted, we don't see. And that's the challenge. So my goal in this segment is not to implore you to forgive and forget what happened. I told you, I'm not interested in telling you that. I'm not here to say you need to forgive and forget what happened on January 6th. No, but I want to implore you, because it is about you. I want to implore you to not let it become a source of stress for you that leads to health problems. Do you see that? Don't get so caught up and angry about January 6th or any of the things that happened that they become a source of stress for you that leads to health problems. Because once you do that, you will not be a help toward the solution. We want the solution, but we cannot be a help toward the solution if we allow ourselves to be covered in anger. And I'll bring that up in a second. You see, if we go back to collect some of those words, some of those similes, synonyms like disgraceful, discreditable, vile, nasty, mean, we are also reminded of how we cringe and we become angry. And like I said, anger is a controlling emotion. You've heard me say that before. I want to stress it here again. Anger is a controlling emotion. If I can keep you angry, I can control you, because you will seek to react to my next move rather than be open to solution. See, when we're angry at someone, we act like, well, the next time they do this, I'm going to respond this way. So they are now controlling us where we're waiting for them to do it one more time. Remember when we were young, we used to go, yeah, push me again. And you know what? I got a flashback for you. My mother used to say, do it one more time. All right? So that's where anger can become a controlling emotion, because we're looking to for the person to do it again, and then we want to be able to seem like we have a spontaneous response for something that we've been sitting on waiting for all along. And if I'm sitting on waiting for it, guess who's in control? The person who has me sitting and waiting. Because I'm more thinking about, is he going to say it now? Is she going to do it now? Instead of me saying, what am I going to say now? What am I going to see? We're so ready to react to them taking action that we don't have any proactivity going for us. Because proactivity is what helps us move to positivity. And according to the National Library of Medicine, National Institute of Health, anger can cause psychological stress and increase the risk of atherosclerotic diseases. And I'm going to put that up there so you can see why I had trouble with it, including strokes and heart attacks. You see, chronic stress is pervasive during negative life events and can lead to the formation of plaque in the arteries. Here's that word. Atherosclerosis refers to the buildup of fats, cholesterol, and other substances in and on your artery walls, plaque, which can constrict and restrict blood flow. In an interview by WebMD with Laura Kubzansky, PhD, MPH, an assistant professor at the Harvard School of Public Health, who has studied the role of stress and emotion on cardiovascular disease, she stated, scientists don't all agree that anger plays a role in heart disease, but many studies have suggested a significant link. I think the case is strong. And I'm going to actually put her link in here as well, of where I got this information from, because that is an important thing to do, is to show who your sources, rather than make sure that you're not trying to take credit for everything that happens. All right, but this is the source of my quote from Dr. Laura Zubzansky. And the article goes on to say, for example, one large study published in Circulation, in a magazine called Circulation in 2000, found that among 12,986 middle-aged African American and white men and women, those who rated high in traits such as anger but had normal blood pressure were more prone to coronary artery disease, CAD, coronary artery disease, or heart attack. In fact, the angriest people face roughly twice the risk of CAD and almost 3 times the risk of heart attack compared to subjects with the lowest level of anxiety and anger. You see, anger may not be the only culprit in heart disease. Zubansky's own research suggests that other extreme negative emotions may contribute to it as well. She says, anger is a problem, but so too are high levels of anxiety and depression. They tend to co-occur. People who are angry a lot also tend to have other chronic negative emotions as well. So you can refer to that as I showed you the link to the article on WebMD where I got that. But now let me get back to what I have to say about it. And that is, I like to add AH to our skeleton. Remember empathy being the skeleton of empathy, of empty? Empty being the skeleton of empty. I want to add AH to our skeleton and recognize that empathy, AH, is the awakening and healing. The awakening and healing. And I creatively look at the references to God in empathy versus EMPaThY to remind you that we are most invincible when we find our piece of the puzzle based on what we're doing intentionally and unintentionally to contribute to the solution or the problem. And I clicked to this a little sooner, but here's what if you may have read it. Are you conscious of using white people, the police, they, instead of some white people, several police, those who I know? You see, those positive twist on it, those expressions, what they will do is they will honor. You have to honor those who are with you and decide that that number is bigger and more worthy of your attention, your energy, and support. Some, several, those I know. They honor who's with you and make sure that you recognize that they have the larger aspect and the larger share of your attention, and your attention becomes what? It becomes your blessing. And I got to stop because here's a blessing to me coming in from LinkedIn is Andrea Campbell, a wonderful friend of mine who I just met last year during the pandemic. Good to see from you, Andrea. The reason and again, I sent some on LinkedIn, Facebook, and YouTube, as well as my website. But those are the three that are running live. This way I can cross-culture and let everybody see what everybody else is clicking on. So, hey, Andrea, good to see from you as well. All right? But again, let's make sure that we honor who we're with. And then we have to decide that that number is bigger and more worthy of our attention. Yeah, white people this way, but it's only some of them. Slavery, not just for black people, but any of our cultures that have experienced any type of slavery had to have help from somebody else. I was telling a friend of mine that I'm real caught up right now I found a quick series on Amazon called the Underground Railroad. And it's not about Harriet Tubman at all. It's actually a railroad underground. It's the same concept of the slaves getting free, but it chronicles one woman going from Georgia to Tennessee, Georgia, South Carolina, North Carolina, Tennessee, and then Indiana, okay? But what I look at when I see things like that is I look at the trust, the lack of communication that both sides had to have. Imagine if I was a slave, all right, or you're a slave. You have to trust that the white person who says, come this way, I'm going to lead you to freedom. And guess what? Let's not even go past that. That white person has to trust that when they tell you to come this way, you're not going to tell your slave master that they told you that they're going to lead you to freedom. Now, once you get there, now they say, look, you need to stay in this attic while I run interference for you. You have to trust them that they're going to put you in the attic and not give you up. And they have to trust you that they can put you in the attic. See, trust. And the lack of communication, because meanwhile, you're not texting one another. You're not on social media saying, hey, this is about to happen. You're not getting a weather report. So, so that's why I say several of those I know. What do you know? And as Andrea says, ditto, ditto. Because that is the truth. As we say these different things, we tend to bring other people into our lives, and we are saying what we hear from them. You're going to see that in a couple of minutes. That's a wonderful, like I said, you can't make this stuff up. It's a wonderful comment that I'm going to be closing with as I get to the end of my message about ditto, ditto, about how we have to choose our messengers, which you also are conscious of hearing me say. But anyway, just that change in your vocabulary. Some, several, those I know. It could seem like a small vocabulary change, but it's actually huge. Remember that you are somebody's messenger and possibly only experience of someone who fits your profile. See, who you are is just somebody's messenger, but you may be the only blank that somebody knows. I got to tell you that I had that happen to me because, see, I had the blessing of winning a high school scholarship to attend a private boarding school in Massachusetts. It's called an ABC. The program is still alive. It's called ABC, A Better Chance, and it sent inner city schools to private high school. And where I went in Massachusetts, I was one of 7 in a 200 student population my first year. In my second year, I had become, because my first year was sophomore year. In my junior year, I had become a mentor and friend to some freshmen, and a couple of them were comfortable enough to tell me that where they grew up, they didn't know black people could be friendly. This is as a teenager. And I'm proud to say this, that I was not offended when they expressed that. You see, even at 15, I understood that people view the world through the comfort of familiar surroundings. So see, that's how we have to look at it sometimes when we get caught up in racism and why somebody's doing that. People see the world through familiar surroundings. Go back to that YouTube link that I put in the thread to show you the empathy of how people are in the same spot but in a different moment. And at 15, that was a valuable lesson that I got. And I'm glad to say I know some of my classmates from that school are now friends on Facebook, and they'll see this video. They may or may not have been involved in that situation that I experienced, that conversation that I had while at school, but they were there. And if you were, thank you, because even if you weren't in that conversation and we're friends here, it's because our spirits were already connecting and on a friendship level back there. Recognize that even with that understanding that people view the world through their familiar surroundings, we know that empathy isn't instantaneous. Empathy is a choice and it's a commitment. And it's one that we have to take seriously by looking within and understanding how we feel. Look within and understanding why we feel how we feel. Then respecting that others have that same option. Don't let what you don't understand about someone else become a source of stress for you that leads to health problems. And that's why we have to empty ourselves so that we can make room. And in that room, the most important inhabitant is you. Empty yourself and recognize that you don't want to let what you don't understand about someone else, because you cannot read someone else's mind. Why are they doing that? What were they thinking? Look at that. Those are questions. You're not saying it. Understand how you felt. Why didn't you get involved with that? That's what's more important. Why didn't you get involved with that? Because the reason you didn't get involved with it, guess what? Someone else also didn't get involved. And now as those someone else's start to come together, we have a solution. And you're a part of the solution. Let's see what Daphne says. Anger hardens the arteries, interrupting the flow of the life source, which is blood throughout the body. Anger only hurts ourselves. See how I say we can't make this up? I got that. Like I said, I quoted some people, on some articles, but we know this information. Didn't I say earlier, as a speaker, what we're doing is delivering information that the audience knows, but they needed to hear it from another source. Not need as in, I need somebody else to confirm what I know. No, it's like, you know what, this is on my mind. They might not even be thinking about it, but then when they hear it, say, wait a minute, I knew that. I thought about that. So thank you, Daphne. Thank you for that. And there you go. Rogercarole saying, confirming it as well. And that's why I say, see, that's why you can't let somebody else's, just like we always say, your negative opinion of me is none of my business. I'm not going to let you stress me out. And one thing you may have heard me say before is we always say, I got to get the negative people out of my life. Bulletin, you can't. You know what, though? The negative people are saying, I got to get the positive people out of my life. They can't either. But I can out-positive any negative person that comes into my life. And let them get sick of me being positive, more so than me worry about getting sick of their negativity. Because you heard in the word, getting sick of them. I'm going to let them get sick? No, that's because I've lost track of who I am. And one thing Sporty does not do, and then Sporty, I insist that you do, is not lose track of who you are. And as Andrea would say, amen. And that amen, A-M-E-N, a message that everyone needs. I'm going to put that in the thread for y'all. A message that everyone needs. You've got to recognize that a message that, okay, now I'm trying to, the message. Okay. I needed to stop and read totally. But amen, a message that everyone needs. And we get the messages over and over again, but it's not until our messenger delivers it that we understand it. So see, it still comes down to one thing you always hear me say: choose your messengers carefully and recognize that you are carefully being chosen as a messenger. What will someone do based on what they learn from you? Again, sitting in that comfortable spot where you and them are one. That's the empathy. And that's the message they're going to take out somewhere else and share with someone who's willing to sit with them. Get to know who you are. That's what's going to make a difference. All right? Do not let what you don't, I want to put that up there because I want it to be stuck in there. Do not let what you don't understand about someone else, because we cannot fully understand someone else because we do not know the source of why they're going through that. Don't let it become your stress. So once again, I want to thank my co-authors, Rogercarole, Daphne, and Vic, and Carolyn, in absentia, for your I words today. Anybody, if you want to get an A, next week I'm going to use the letter A when I create my message. Don't know what the message is going to be, but it's going to be a message that involves the synchronicity of the words that you give me in the thread that begin with the letter A. So put your words, even if you're watching the video, I got a whole week to look at this thing and get your A words and put it in so I can list you as one of my co-authors to next week's message. Hey, we're in the month of April still, right? Are we? Yes. But don't put April in there, all right? But I definitely want to say thank you so much for watching Glue Wednesday and interacting. And remember that God's love really does undo everything. Absolutely everything. All things work to the good of God and those who follow his word. Thank you, Rogercarole, for getting our first word in there. Thank you. Thanks. See, Andrea just reminded me of something. People won't. Well, it won't matter because you'll still get to see it next week. But Rogercarole on Facebook gave us access. And see, if you think about today's message, empathy, didn't we just talk about opening yourself? So you have to have access to who you are. You have to have access, and then you give people access to who you are. Andrea gave us awesomeness, something you need to be concerned with and engulfed with about who you are. You're awesome, which is why people want access to you. And so don't minimize your victories to highlight someone else's ignorance. And that's why Tina says, be amazing. See, and Tina's on LinkedIn, as is Daphne, as is Andrea, and both of them gave us words that we need to be saying to ourselves. You are awesome. You are amazing. And not saying it rote, not saying it as if it's just, I'm reading the script. You are amazing. You are awesome. No, you have to mean it. You have to mean it. So you're awesome. When you do something, give yourself a high five. I was at one of my military events a couple of weeks ago, and one of the guys who was presenting before me, he said, because my events have both the military member and their family member. So he said, everybody in uniform stand up. And then he said, raise your right hand as high as you can. And they raised their right hand as high as you can, still not knowing where he was going. He said, now take it and put it behind your neck. And he said, put it behind your, and then he said, then lower it and pat yourself on the back. Pat yourself on the back, because we don't give ourselves credit enough. And that's what we want to make sure we're saying. I'm amazing. I'm awesome. That's what we have to be able to do. So when it was my turn to get up and speak, I said, not just the film, because this is the Army event. I said, not just the Army soldiers. I said, I want everybody to raise your left hand as high as you can. I said, now, I want you to raise it. I want you to put it to your ear as if you're answering the phone. And they did that. And I said, now I just want you to whisper, yes. And then when I said to them, there's a high calling on your life as a military family. America asks you to turn your emotions on and off at the drop of an order. And you do it. You answer yes. But do you give yourself credit? Do you tell yourself how awesome and amazing you are? Love you, military family, not just the service members, but the family members as well, and that's present and past. They answer the calling to serve by saying, yes, I will step forward. And that's why it's advantageous to be who you are. When you know how awesome you are, when you know how amazing you are, you will understand why people want access to you. And that's the advantage you have, is that only you know who you are and why you did what you did. And since you have to focus on that, let that help you recognize why I cannot give this person access to me. And I will not. And that's because that's how precious you are. So it's not always, being positive does not always mean saying an incomplete sentence of yes. It's adding to what the yes is. Yes, I will stay away from this person. Yes, I will tell this person I will share only this. That's not negative. See, so be careful of how people want you to define the blessing that you have and that you share. So thank you again for those. Those words will be in my message next week. As you saw, I just had a good time collecting them and using them. Why? Because I may not make it to next week. Because it's about God's love, y'all. It's not negative at all. Recognize that God's love undoes everything. And I'm going to be fine. I just thought I'd throw that in because I can't help myself. Look, I'll see you next week. God bless you. All is well. Keep it happening for yourself. Where's my thing here so I can throw my name up there one more time? Bap, 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 bap. Boom. All right. Love you and ciao.